Alice Through the Looking Glass, Part 1. Looking Glass House. Alice was sitting in a chair, winding up a ball of yarn. Her kitten, Snowdrop, was playing with the yarn, and Alice scolded it for being mischievous. Alice then began to talk to the kitten about her plans for the next day, which include going to see a bonfire. She also talked about how she wished she could play chess with the kitten. Alice then got up on the fireplace and looked through the looking glass. She saw a room that was just like her own drawing room, except that everything was reversed. She imagined what it would be like to live in the looking glass world, and she wondered if the milk there was good to drink. Alice then stepped through the looking glass and found herself in the looking glass world. She was surprised to find that the room was quite different from what she had imagined.